All right, well, I guess we could get into Tenet just about now, right?
Yeah, let's do it.
For anyone listening, this is the new film by Christopher Nolan that I've been waiting many months to see. And finally, on Monday of last week, I guess a week ago, right?
Yeah.
We went, a group of 10 of us, to the Daly City Theater to a private screening. And I enjoyed it very much. I really like this movie, Cameron.
Really? Thinking on it and coming back.
Thinking on it and well, it's not like my opinion has changed. And I mean, in many ways it's nonsense and it's garbage. And it's, I think, almost definitely his worst movie.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
But I don't know. I enjoyed it. I mean, look, obviously there's going to be some bias coming in a little bit, given that I love Christopher Nolan's movies in general, but also that, it's the first time I've been back in a movie theater since, I think, March 8th. So, there's definitely some excitement there. It was interesting seeing, sitting with you guys watching the movie again, because I had thought about the inconvenience of certain things of COVID, of like being anxious about, wearing the mask, and also, wearing a mask for 3 hours, which I obviously hadn't done in any capacity this whole year. But the thing I didn't think about is the weirdness of sitting next to people and not being able to see their faces.
Yeah.
Because that's actually something I didn't think about until it's deprived from me. But a big part of it is sort of like when you look side eye at your friend or my dad and kind of go like, oh wow, that was awesome, or oh my god.
Also the fact that you're not sitting next to anybody else either. You're sitting at least 1 seat away, and for you it was more like 5 seats away. So I basically couldn't see you the whole time, which. It is what it is in this, in this world that we're living in. But at the same time, it's not the same. It's definitely not the same.
Well, you would have definitely laughed if you could have seen my face during this movie, because there were, there were numerous times when I just had an unbelievably stupid grin on my face.
Sure, yeah.
Watching, like the scene with all the trucks, or like him, and the airplane, like all these things. It's just, I don't know. I just love this shit.
Right.
I can't be highbrow about this in any way. It just delights me what he does.
No, I completely agree, and this is why I'm so conflicted on this movie, and why I'm really depressed to figure out that my conclusion is that I really don't like it. Is because the things that he gets right, and the which mainly is the action sequences and the set pieces, are like so right. They're like top tier right. You know what I mean? Like they are the best in class of what he's doing. It's like something like this movie and Mission Impossible Fallout, and like basically nothing else in terms of
Fury Road maybe.
Yeah,
but yeah,
exactly. It's like it's so on that level of like this is awesome. This is like what we're here for. And then when you pull back and when you consider the whole movie, it all really still starts to crumble in my mind, and it's like. It's really depressing to see that, like, something very simple, something very uncomplicated is really what drives a lot of these fantastic action movies. You think about Fury Road, and it's so precise. It's so simple, everything that you're seeing is exactly what it is. You know, it's not something that you have to extrapolate or imagine or do anything like that. It's completely, you know, there for you to take literally. And
yes,
what makes
the simplest synopsis of any movie ever. And they go one way and then they go another.
Exactly. And what makes that movie compelling is that it's held together by the intense levels of just riveting feeling. You know what I mean? Like you feel, you don't contemplate a movie like Mad Max Fury Road. You feel it. You know, when you're watching it, it makes you you know, lose your breath in certain points, and it's so like engaging in that way. And the same way, and maybe to a lesser extent, something like Mission Impossible. Like they're so simple movies. They're extremely base level. You know, we're spies. We're gonna stop the bad guys from doing bad shit. You know, like that's it. That's the movie. We're gonna do. They're gonna do bad shit. We're gonna do good shit to stop them. And sometimes we gotta steal some cars. You know what I mean? Like that's
right.
That's basically the plot of every Mission Impossible movie, and that's fine. That's completely fine. But a movie like Tenet has the action pieces that you're there for, that your mouth is like dripping watching, you know, like you're drooling for these sequences. But then it's strung together by something that makes you actually have to engage your cerebral brain, which in theory would be a really good idea and a really good thing. And like on paper, if you told me that going into this movie, I'd be like, oh yeah, that's what I'm here for. You know, an action movie that's awesome action and is cerebral and is, you know, like activating that part of my mind. Sure, why not? And then you come out of the movie and you're like, I don't know what happened. You know, like I'm really confused at every level of this movie.
Yeah, and both what happened in the story and what happened in terms of just Nolan's having control over his movie in general.
Well, and like that's why I think he got it so right with Inception. And he's trying.
I was just gonna say that's the one
exactly.
Where it is. He got it perfect.
And
the cerebral and the pure cinema.
And he's trying to recapture that sort of idea. And for the most part, honestly, he's really good directorially at doing this. You know, he's really good at giving you the nuggets that keep you engaged and keep your sort of primal brain engaged, as well as giving you things to think about at home. You know, things to think about when you're looking back at the movie. And that's what kind of makes his experiences so special.
Yeah, and as an action filmmaker, he's in some ways gotten even better than when he did Inception. I just watched Inception. I watched it the day after we saw Tenet. And in some ways, you know, his command of individual shots and the coherence of action sequences, and in some of the editing, I'm not going to say all of it in Tenet, but there are just certain things where he is an even more elegant filmmaker than he was making Inception. And you know, anyone who knows me knows that's one of my favorite movies ever. So you're seeing an improvement, but it's the overcomplication of the story, especially when it could be something so simple. Because when you break down what is actually like happening in the movie, you know, and I went and I read the synopsis to make sure I'm getting everything, because there are definitely things I didn't get just watching it the first time, which we'll get. Let's try and keep the spoilers back for just a second here. Yeah. But there are things they didn't understand, but more importantly, the high concept premise of time being inverted in Tenet, it almost feels like it's layered on to, like he had just almost a pretty generic action movie like a Mission Impossible or James Bond movie, and he sort of tried to layer this on to kind of make it seem more highbrow in some ways, but then it just sort of, it gets away from him, and muddies something that could just be kind of simple and pure. Now, he's done movies already like that, where he just does a straightforward story, just makes a big bombastic thing. Especially, I would say, like Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah.
Is that kind of movie. But when I look at Inception, the premise of that movie is inherently tied into what's happening in that movie, what the finale of that movie is, all the way the action is going, the way you're following things. That movie could only be constructed with this premise of dreams within dreams that he's created.
Yeah.
The Tenet ending, or really like most of the movie, if you stripped away the high concept premise, it wouldn't be actually that different. A lot of the things of what the movie is doing is it's a pretty straightforward, we have to stop the bad guy movie, and the bad guy is, I mean, in some ways very self-consciously a very goofy James Bond type villain, which we will get into, Kenneth Branagh. And I just feel like, I don't know, it's like he doesn't flesh out the premise in a way that justifies it, and especially when the premise sort of obfuscates the action from just being, because if he just made a pure action movie with the set pieces he has, I think it would have flowed a lot better as a movie. You know, it just becomes like it's almost like he's hiding that he doesn't really have that interesting of an idea for this movie. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess that's part of the big problem is like the interesting moments that you want to see are the sort of the normal parts of it. You know, it's when they're breaking it, you know, not to get too deep into it, but you know, they're breaking into the Freeport, and you know, that sequence is awesome, or the car chase sequence, or you know,
absolutely.
like everything like that is so well done, and almost nothing is added to it with the sort of hook of the movie, which is, you know, this sort of backwards momentum, or this what do they call it, backwards inverted, I guess they call it. Inverted entropy. Yeah. Which is I think it's interesting in concept, and could have done something to sort of influence the way that this movie was going, but at the end of the day, he only uses it to do normal things that a normal movie would do. You know, like it doesn't add to it. You know, like the dreams within dreams stuff in Inception is like, why is it being layered in this sort of intercut way? Oh, it's because it's all happening simultaneously. You know, it's all being done in these sort of different locations, but those different locations are within someone's mind, you know? And so like that totally makes sense, and is totally like feeding the enjoyment that you're getting from the filmmaking of it.
Right.
This movie, you know, sure, the birds are flying backwards, but it doesn't really have anything to do to affect your experience while watching, you know, the action sequence.
Well, it's no deeper than just like, oh, that's kind of cool. That was a cool like use of that, a cool moment. Which, of course, for me, you know, that's enough to sustain my interest in many ways, especially with the skill of Nolan's filmmaking. But even more importantly than its usage in the story, I just was also thinking with Inception, and also with the high concept ideas in like Memento and Interstellar, all of these are intimately linked to the movie's themes as well. And in terms of especially Inception, his character, which is him of trying to cling to the past, trying to preserve what he can't have in his dream. You know, it's all comes together in this way where the story requires the premise, the ideas he's conveying, the emotion he's conveying, all couldn't happen without that premise.
And then
but
especially
Tenet is a movie with there's not an emotional really component to it. I mean, you care about the characters because they're likable, and and the bad guy is very bad, and they're very good, but there's nothing going on even close to that level of making you feel for them in a deeper way.
Well, then then I was gonna mention Memento. I think is almost his like crystallized version of that. Like the way that the film is presented is because of the character itself. Like that's the only almost the only interesting aspect of Memento is experiencing it in a certain way because you're relating it to the character, so like it's like there's this direct empathetic connection to the main character that you're witnessing when he's piecing together these fragments and these moments and these pictures. You're also doing it as well, and so it's like it's literally 1-to-1. Like Inception is very interesting because there's sort of this there's this greater conceptualization and thematic relevance and whatnot. But I think even as early as Memento, he was doing the same thing that he's basically done his whole career, except for this movie. You know what I mean? Like like he was in Memento. Like the reason you connect with that movie is because you have an empathetic connection with the main character. So like there's this deep link, and that's basically the only thing that makes the movie interesting, I would say. If you watched a movie that was in vignettes going backwards, probably it wouldn't be very good. Like most people couldn't make that an interesting or compelling movie. And the reason is
he justifies it.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's why this movie for me is so frustrating because there's not enough reason. Well, I don't even know if that's true. It's just I think it's just the blankness of the characters. Almost all of the characters, I would say. Like
no, I think that's the bigger problem because, you don't have to have a movie that has a deep emotional resonance. Like Mission Impossible, Fallout, and even to some extent Fury Road are movies that are just pure experiences, and you just go along for the ride. That's what they are. Beautifully made rides, and I think that's in some ways what he's aspiring to. This is kind of the first movie he's made where the main character is not a miserable, depressed person.
Yeah, but
which I like. I really like John David Washington in the lead. He doesn't have much to work with, but for what he has so much charm, and you just immediately like him as soon as you see him.
Yeah,
and so that aspect of it is nice, but for a movie that is kind of, literally it's in the script where he says, like, the woman says, you have to sort of not think about it, just feel it, and it's sort of Nolan saying, like, just go along for the ride, I guess. It's hard to, the idea of this being just a pure thing that you just let your, go along for the ride and let your emotions go along for the ride when there are no real emotions to be had in the movie, and the ride is so obfuscated that it feels like it. There needs to be a flow to it that this movie doesn't fully have, though in spurts it does.
Yeah.
In spurts you go like, wow, that was just like a absolutely deftly crafted sequence. But again, I sound so harsh on this movie for a movie I just said I'd loved a few minutes ago. Just before we get into like spoilers, I feel like in conclusion, I would say, despite all that I've just said about why this movie is very flawed, I don't know, there's something fun about trying to sort of piece it together and sort of trying to, I do enjoy the ride to some extent. It's just the ride is not as beautifully constructed as his other movies. That, I mean, he's been making basically movies that are just these pure experiences since 2008, I would say. And really, I think this is like the first one that I'd say all of them were great. The last 6 of them are great movies to different degrees. Until this one. But I mean, I don't know, man. I was just having such a blast watching this movie. I mean, this is going to sound crazy when I say this, but I will say, I think there are definitely some parallels in my feelings about this movie and my feelings about Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. Which I know
I can absolutely see where you're going, and it's probably the reason why I really
which I know you hate, but I think it's like, which is funny because one's movie's flaws are the product of meddling and greed and studios not trusting their artists, and the other is the product of an artist who has so little checks on him at this point in his career that he's just doing whatever the fuck he wants and just going crazy. But both have the quality of me watching them and going like, yeah, you know, a lot of this could be better, but man, this is just, I mean, the cinematography is beautiful in these movies, and I'm just enjoying going along with it. And I think also the specifics of why I enjoy it I'll get into more in the spoilers, because it's more like specific elements.
I'll say this movie was, you know, not to draw the parallel too deeply, but this movie was not as violently offensive to me as as The Rise of Skywalker was. So, you know, it's got that going for it.
Well, it's not the letdown of you know, following up 4 or 5 you know, either classic or at least very good movies. So, you know, it's not you know, the guy's he's gotta not make a great movie at some point, you know. I mean,
it's true. It's true.
And it's 6 great movies like that. It's like insane.
Although, you know, to be fair, did you hear he's remaking Memento? Which is like so weird.
No, he's not.
Is this is not true? It's not.
Well, someone is remaking Memento, so you'll see it on his IMDb because there's a based on credit. But
I think
he's not.
I think original screenplay is.
Yeah, because I mean, original. He wrote the original
I guess so.
screenplay.
So who's okay? So who is making the Memento?
I don't know.
Why are they doing a Memento remake?
I don't know, Cameron. I think that could be just a dead project because that came up many years ago.
Okay.
I remember 5 or 6 years ago, they said someone's remaking Memento, and everyone said unanimously
no.
Yeah, millions of voices rose up in terror.
Got it. Okay,
saying,
yeah,
absolutely not.
All right. I hope this is completely not true. But yeah, I did just see this in his IMDb. And
I mean, he's out of his mind.
Oh
but
my
he's
goodness!
Not
If he has any director remade a movie of their own, like 20 years down the line, is it?
I mean, yeah, it's happened before, but usually not a movie that's like one of their best movies.
Yeah,
like Hitchcock remade The Man Who Knew Too Much, like in the 50s, and
I see.
Yeah, it's happened a few times.
That's very strange to me because I would never expect it. But in any case, it doesn't directly correlate to what we're doing or what we're talking about here. But yeah,
but I could see why you'd be shocked if you saw that.
It was just
don't worry, kid.
Announced. You know, that's what it said. So
yeah.
I think for me, you know, it's certainly a letdown, and it's something that I'm sort of coming to grips with the fact that I really dislike it. But it's not, you know, I kind of feel like, well, you know, you'll get him next time, champ. You know what I mean? Like I feel I feel like, sure, this one wasn't that good, but he's still Christopher Nolan. Yeah, you know, like it's not that. You know, certain elements of this movie were very very poorly put together, but
yeah, which we'll get into. Yeah,
you know, he's still him, and he's still he's still got a lot of his charm and a lot, like you said, a lot of his sort of the way that he puts things together on screen has been really, only improved since sort of 2010 and only gotten better and more interesting in
and we'll get into his work with Van Hoytema, which has just been like astounding in the last few years. It's definitely not a movie that makes me go, oh, Christopher Nolan, he's lost it, which amazingly people have been saying people said that about Interstellar. I mean, I can't even believe there's a guy on the Screen Junkies show who said when Interstellar came out, Christopher Nolan, he should retire because it's like he's made I guess at that point 7 great movies, and then he made a bad one, and then he needs to stop. I was like, what?
I don't know. It's you see. So I used to think that The Dark Knight Rises was kind of as low as Nolan movies go. Although I saw The Following and I wasn't too impressed by it, but I
what's his first movie? So it's a little different.
It's different, and at least there are some elements of it that I think are pretty enjoyable and intriguing and sort of you could see where he goes from there in terms of his directorial style. Like I think there's elements of it that are intriguing, although for me really his sort of reign comes after Memento. So basically 20 years of nonstop incredible filmmaking, which is pretty
he's allowed
pretty impressive.
To have a misstep, and not even a terrible misstep at this point. I of course I'll never not look forward to whatever he's doing. I will say that as much as it's a cool movie, I guess maybe what I'd say is if you're young and you're not at risk to get the coronavirus, maybe safely take the risk of seeing it in the theater because in some ways more than anything, it sounds amazing in the theater. Especially that score and the Ludwig Göransson bass in that movie.
I mean, some of it sounds amazing. Some of it. Is
if you see in the theater though, get the closed captioning. I was really glad.
Oh my goodness, me too.
Because that really was very helpful. Because it is hard to understand, and even with the closed captioning, I was like, whoa, I was having trouble following things. But for the most part, especially. And you know who I'm talking to, listener. If you are an 83-year-old woman, maybe in New York City, do not go out and see this movie. It is not worth risking your life to see. You can definitely wait to see it on video, and you can watch it with subtitles also. It is not something I'd say you should risk your life to go see, especially when it's probably coming out in a month or so. I don't know if I would go back and see it again because I don't really enjoy the experience of the COVID movie theater thing. I mean, I didn't drink any water the entire time I was in that theater just because I was being so vigilant. You didn't give a shit, Cameron. You were just shoveling popcorn in your mouth. But this is the third time I've seen it. So the first time I was probably at the max capacity of what it is now. So what is that, 25%? Something like that.
So yeah, it was the first-ish week. I think it was the first week that it came out. And it wasn't the first week it came out. It was the first week that the theaters were open. People had seen it at least a month before we got it in theaters, but it was the first week that Cinemark was back. So,
right. I might consider seeing it again if it was in the if one of the East Bay theaters opened up.
Yeah.
And I could see it with a time when there's not many people, but it's not the greatest. I mean, I'll take the risk once for Christopher Nolan, and it's like. Yeah, if Linklater dropped his next movie in a theater, I'd go see it. But for the most part, it's I prefer to just stay home until we're watching movies in the theater as we used to. But
yeah, I mean it's definitely too bad too because I think I don't know. I would say my mind is on sort of movies as an industry and movies as sort of where they're going, and it's very obvious that this year things are looking extremely poor. So So, for me, that's disappointing, and that's kind of, I don't know. I am, 20. Well, how old am I? 23. I live with like 25-year-olds. I'm willing to go see movies to support filmmakers that I appreciate, and all of that.
Oh yeah, I would go see Ian Nucci's movie if they had put that in there. I would have gone and seen that. But yeah, it's if you're not like a giant Christopher Nolan fanboy, which I guess we have exposed ourselves as being, it is not. It's not something you're like, oh, you have to go see this. But I think if you want to see something that's kind of different and weird and has a lot of good action and such, I think you'll enjoy it. Surprisingly, my dad really didn't like it.
Yeah.
Everyone else who we went to see it with really liked the movie a lot, which was surprising to me because these are people who are, like well educated. Like, one of my friends he's like a brain surgeon who went to Stanford and his wife, and I was just, as I'm watching the movie, I'm like, wow, they're gonna think this is so dumb. Like, they're probably gonna think I'm an idiot for making them risk their lives to go see this. And then the movie ends and like, oh, I loved it. It was so great. So I don't know. I mean, I think for some people, maybe it's the curse of us being just so anal about filmmaking, and maybe just having high standards for Nolan movies too, that maybe we're a little bit more harsh, and other people are just willing to say, oh, I gotta figure out this puzzle, and this was kind of fun. So
yeah, I mean, that good for them too, because
I'm happy for them, really. Yeah.
I'm not even happy. I'm envious of their position almost. So it's a good thing. I was just looking at the box office numbers, and they're pretty dismal.
Yeah. I kind of hope I would be happy to see him dial back the scale of his movies a little bit.
Me too.
Because
100%.
he has basically done 6 movies in a row that are these like maximalist movies. And, obviously I love these, but I would be interested to see him do something a little more like in the Memento Prestige kind of scale. Just because he hasn't done it in a while, and
I would love.
Also, you don't need to gamble that much money too, Christopher Nolan. Like, Jesus.
Well, to be fair, I mean, I think Dunkirk was even as his own sort of war movie goes. I think it was pretty dialed back in terms of its like, of its maybe. I don't know. It's I guess it's difficult to say, but maybe his sort of like grandiose visions of like, writing and directing and whatnot. In terms of its,
well, it's dialed back in terms of length and in terms of like focus
and story, and focus.
It was a tighter movie than the Batmans and then Inception and Tenet.
Yeah. So for me, I think Dunkirk kind of. I don't know. I really love that movie. I think it's fantastic.
Oh, it's amazing.
I'll give it that award for being, even if it was the giant budget and special effects heavy and whatnot. I think the fact that he didn't make a sweeping epic about World War II is pretty impressive, and he just made like a one, single event that happened, and he explored that sort of to its maximum potential.
Right. Yeah, I guess it's not like globe-trotting the way some of these other movies are.
Yeah.
I can't believe that didn't win Best Picture. That's like, and The Shape of Water.
Oh my gosh, I know. Yeah.
That year. It's like who's even thinking about that movie? It's just like, oh my god. But whatever. I guess we should get into spoilers. You're not like, it's not too late, right?
Yeah,
let's talk about.
We'll
the spoilers,
get into spoilers.
There's specific shit we need to talk about in this movie.
Agreed.
And I don't know, where should we start? The movie has a great opening. I mean, that's for sure.
Yes, it does. Although, again, like he leans you in with having it be sort of this mysterious, like he gives you the mystery, but then he drowns you in mystery so that it's almost incomprehensible. So like there's some incredible elements of the opening sequence, but the thing that holds me back from it being like, my favorite Nolan opener or anything like that is it's so complicated. You don't know who anybody is. You don't know who anybody is. Who people are for and against. There's so many layers in this just one opening sequence that visually it's stimulating and it's intriguing and sort of pulling you into the world, but at the same time it's giving you so much information on top of each other that I felt really disoriented by that as the opening sequence.
Did you feel that way even the third time you saw it?
Yeah, even.
Huh.
And it's one of the things that I keep coming back to about this movie is like my mind and my eyes say, ooh, fun things happening, flashy lights, yay, explosions. And all of that sort of intuitive part of my brain is running at full speed. And then the writer who's on top of that, who's my logical brain turns on and says, wait, who are they? Wait, what are they doing? Wait, who's blowing up who? Wait a second.
Right.
This
is where you have to go to the...
Is David Tennant... sorry.
John David Washington.
David Tennant.
David Tennant from Doctor Who.
Is John David Washington, is his character a CIA infiltrator of the police band, or is he an infiltrator of the Russian terrorists who are blowing up the bombs, or is he on a mission to save the ambassador who's I guess they're trying to assassinate?
It's none of the above. It's Washington.
See, this is what I mean.
He's going into, and this is only from because I've read the synopses and I've actually tried to figure out what's going on. Because watching it for the first time, just okay, I guess they have to save the day. I also thought I thought they blew up the opera at the end of it. I thought, oh wow, John David Washington is a mass murderer. But I didn't. I didn't realize he was
putting it into the bag
bombs.
to save.
But that's the thing about the movie is I'm not sure how much you can blame the speed of how things are going. That's actually why I make the comparison to Rise of Skywalker, because so much information and so many different things are being conveyed at this breakneck speed that I think is much more frantic than anything else he's done. Because I wasn't clear about what he's doing. I watched it on the cam rip and I realized he's collecting the bombs and he's throwing them into the balcony where I guess no one is in the theater. Yeah. Or he's killing all the people on the balcony. I don't know. But it's so that's what he's doing. But I also didn't gather. I'm not sure if Martin Donovan explains that in the boat scene, that it's like a false flag attack basically, and it's basically a cover so the government can capture the guy in the box seat and also obtain the MacGuffin algorithm piece of cube that's in his coat check.
Yeah.
I mean, you can gather as you're watching it that they're trying to get that's important. But I wasn't clear about what the allegiances were. I wasn't even clear about that they were 3 American soldiers that were not actually working with the rest of the soldiers that are pumping gas into the theater. But this is where I'm like, am I dumb? Or
no, I think it's
the editing
completely
of this
unclear.
not and the storytelling not clear. I think I mean, I'm not saying I'm not dumb, but I think, and this is where I get to editing too, because I think in many sequences I just felt like there were things that there was some of the classic great Nolan cross-cutting, building up to sequences. When we get to the truck scene, that's I think the pinnacle of that, where I think it's just a perfect sequence. But there were a lot of things where I felt like he's cutting to different things, and it's like incoherent. Like I don't, not because the story's confusing, but like I don't know where people are going or what they're doing.
Yeah. Well,
which I've never felt in other.
The last sequence.
Maybe Batman Begins a little bit, but even Batman Begins as that, even though the action is not as great, you know what's happening.
The last sequence, especially, I think is kind of plagued by the worst of his excesses almost, and it's so.
I have no idea what the red and blue soldiers are doing outside of the ones who are actually going to get the algorithm. I have no idea when they blow up that building, and this is with reading like 3 synopses of the movie. I have no idea what they at one point they blow up a building both at once. I don't know. I mean, it's awesome.
It was like watching Man. It was like watching Man with a movie camera. At that sequence, it was like it was so.
It's like Koyaanisqatsi.
It was so. Honestly, it was like it was. Not even in a good way. It was just so visually numbing that like I couldn't. I had to shut that part of my brain off that was trying to understand what anything was going on, you know? Like, and I've seen this movie 3 times now, and I still can't put together what is happening in that sequence. It's so.
I mean, again, it's I didn't find it like it hurt my brain like you're saying. I mean, I thought it was fun, but I utterly am confused about what is going on. And you can even say, I mean, Nolan is a messy filmmaker. I think a lot of people who love Nolan like us, we sometimes like don't recognize the fact that he sets up a lot of things, you know, rules of what's going on, and then just kind of breaks them, or he just, sometimes this happens. I mean, watching Inception, which again, I love, but there are things in that where it's like, sometimes the rules of this, you know, the gravity causes the gravity of one level causes the gravity of another level to be affected. Most of the time it doesn't, though.
Yeah.
Sometimes there are things that go through, sometimes it doesn't. The whole thing of the kick at the end, I think, actually might be like literally a mistake, like in the screenplay. As much as like it's like one of my favorite sequences in all of filmmaking, but I think he like sets up rules that are different that are in the world.
Right.
But there's no point in Inception, though, even though actually I would say the individual shots in filmmaking are actually in some ways less elegant because he's shooting more handheld, kind of like shaky stuff in that movie. You always know what's happening. You always know, okay, Tom Hardy, he's trying to run around the fortress and blow it up, right? And he's trying to kill as many people at once. You're never confused about why Tom Hardy is running around the snow fortress or why Joseph Gordon-Levitt is going to different places in the hotel. You always know exactly what each character, each plot line is doing. And in Tenet, even the main characters, I was not 100% clear at a certain point.
Yeah, no.
I mean, it's a really bad sign when the ending of that movie, which is not supposed to be something that is cerebral, or not the ending, but the climactic moment of the movie, it's not supposed to be something where you're confused. It's supposed to be something where there's a sense of like, we saved the day, relief, right? Where she shoots Branagh, he falls comically out of the ship, which is awesome. But like literally, I didn't know it when they came up holding on to the cart. I wasn't sure if the world had ended or if they were successful. Like literally,
I had no. No.
and again, the synopses are no assistance here because I think it's the messiness of what are they doing to the algorithm that's disabling it is not clear. Like I compare that because it's so similar to the end of Mission Impossible Fallout.
Yes,
right?
Yes,
both
yes,
are like 100%. And that one, it's so clear.
It's crystal
Ving Rhames
clear.
He has to cut this wire at the exact moment that Tom Cruise turns a key in a thing. That's all. It doesn't need to make scientific sense, but it makes sense in the text of the movie,
and it makes 100%. You know, it is stimulating when you see those elements come together, and your action boner is just rock hard the whole time. And
that's an interesting metaphor, Cameron. But yes, yeah, and then the sky goes white. It's like it's such a perfectly executed moment because right, if you remember, it goes down to 1, and then the sky goes white. and then it fades back down, and it's Tom Cruise looking at the sunset, and he drops that key, and you're like, he saved the fucking day. But this one, I literally didn't know if they had failed to save the day or if they did save the day, and that is a
bad
flaw
sign.
of filmmaking and a flaw of editing. And this is where I arrive at sort of, I don't know if it's a theory, but it's like I guess a conjecture that I'm sort of making about this movie, which is that in some ways I think Christopher Nolan needs Lee Smith. Like I think to me, I can't say this for certain because I think the screenplay is messy also. But I
was almost gonna say he needs Jonathan, and it's
Jonathan. Well, but Inception and Dunkirk are Jonathan-less.
That's true, but I think a movie like this probably would have really benefited from another set of eyes, I guess, is what I'm saying.
In that way, yes. I mean, I'm honestly surprised his wife, who's producing the movie, isn't going like, Chris, this is because like you think that's what your significant other should be doing, and I'm sure she voiced these concerns, and he's like, whatever, but
Juzo, are you saying that that a female editor is not as good as a male editor, Juzo? Is this what you're saying?
This is the part where I think it's like I might have to just cut this part out, but like I think that a lot of people have been avoided saying this, and I think honestly that could be for that reason. I mean, I don't want to sound like just overly simplifying the gender politics of how people respond to different artists' work in movies, but I don't think it's a stretch to say a lot of film critics are going to be a little iffy about saying, oh, this young female editor is not as good as this older male editor. But I'm perfectly comfortable saying it because, first of all, I would say Jennifer Lame has been responsible for many great films.
Right. Yes.
She edited Hereditary.
Yep.
She edited
Marriage Story.
I think
it's
Marriage Story.
Manchester by the Sea
Francis
is fantastic.
Manchester by the Sea.
I mean, Paper Towns is her crown jewel, according to you.
I like Paper Towns a lot. Did she do Paper Towns?
Yeah, she did.
Yeah, but she's Jennifer Lame. But these are very different movies.
Yes.
All of those movies, even Hereditary, is Hereditary is much closer to a Manchester by the Sea or a Noah Baumbach movie
than Tenet.
A movie like it is a understandable burden to jump from something like Marriage Story to something like Tenet. I mean, like that's kind of crazy. To even imagine having to make that kind of jump in the scale of your work. So it's perfectly understandable that it would not be. Again, I can't put the entire blame of this at her because a lot of this is Nolan's fault.
I'm gonna say I don't think people are going to extrapolate that far. I think, and I won't win any friends putting it this way, but I don't think film critics are very much thinking in that realm. I don't think it's possible that film critics aren't smart enough to think in that realm because they react to what they see. No, I'm serious. Like they react to.
No, I know what you mean though. I know what
to the things that are evident to them. They react to. Okay, Christopher Nolan. It's his movie, so what he's doing with it is his own, or if there are actors and actresses on screen, then that's what we can think about. So there's these. Ultimately, they're on that wavelength. They're not thinking about this.
That's probably true. I mean, in some ways, we probably think about it maybe too much, but I do think. I mean, look, Clint Eastwood has worked with the same editor for the last 30 years on every movie except for Sully and the 1517 to Paris, which are by far the worst movies he's made in that 30-year period. So I think it's fair to say, and then the two movies he made after that, and he's in his late 80s, were brilliant. So I mean, Woody Allen worked with the same woman for 30 years, and then he moved to someone else and had definitely a downturn in his work as well. Right. So I think these editors in some ways are, they're high in terms of like the hierarchy
creative
of
input,
who you could ascribe authorship to different
100%,
works.
yeah.
Other than maybe director and writer, editor is probably the highest one. And I think, Lee Smith's work in these other movies has just been so distinct and so strong that I think filling those shoes is a considerable task. And we should definitely give her credit for some of the really great sequences in this movie. But as a whole, there's another weird moment is after the Freeport heist. That was like the weirdest cut I've ever seen, where they lie down on the floor and then they're just sitting in a hotel room.
Yeah, it's so.
What was that?
It's
I don't
so
understand.
jarring. Yeah, it's true. I mean, I think they lie down on the floor because they're it's as if they got knocked out in the whole.
But how would that? I don't understand how in a million years they would even buy that, because they would 100% be dead if they had actually been knocked out.
See,
that's
why it cut away so quickly.
And but that's the Rise of Skywalker thing, where again it feels like Nolan being like, don't worry about it, just keep going. and it's like, I mean, that's something that is not great, and again that is something that's on Nolan, because no editor is gonna cut away like something. I mean, it actually reminded me of how like Woody Allen like has been cutting his later movies, where like he just like skips the ends of scenes, and he's trying to put his movie under 90 minutes, so he's just trying to move it along, so it's like, I don't know. It feels like the style of someone with almost too much confidence in their own storytelling.
Yeah.
But I don't know. All of this to say, this all come from just talking about the opening sequence.
Yes, literally. Yes, we haven't gotten past it, but I think it's important to talk about sort of the flaws in this opening sequence, because at the end of that sequence, when he takes the pill and there's there's Tenet, it comes on screen. That was the point where I realized, I'm not going to understand anything that's going on in this movie, so I better just strap in.
Also, I wasn't sure about, because when Martin Donovan says this was a test, maybe I'm just because I saw this in the trailers, but I thought that the whole opera thing was like the simulation, the Kobayashi Maru simulation in Star Trek: The Wrath of Khan, where it was all just a test to see.
No.
But no, they really failed like an actual thing. And the only thing that was a test was the fake cyanide capsule. But I thought, like, I was thinking, is it a real?
No, I understood.
None of this was real.
I understood that. That was
again. This is me being dumb rather than Christopher Nolan failing as a storyteller. But so go ahead.
But you move along in this story, and for me, I guess I was. The first time I watched it, I was more or less confused than anything. Like that's what I took away from it. I was like, I had the same feeling that I had after that first sequence. Was just, so wait, so why are they doing the things that they're doing? What's all this about? You definitely know that there's like, there's a big bad, and he's gonna blow up the world. That's basically the only thing that you can get out of. You don't know how or why or for what reason or anything.
I mean, there's like a ludicrous thing of
so
like
bad.
Elizabeth Debicki has a forged painting she accidentally sold to him, and somehow this blackmails him into controlling her complete. I mean, I guess he's blackmailing her through the kid more than anything. She wants to see her kid, and so she has to kind of go along with his demands. But the whole painting thing is just like, okay. But again, it's like, I can accept that, and I was fine accepting it in terms of a setup for them to break into a Freeport by ramming a giant passenger airliner into a building. Though I have to admit, probably as I watched it, I didn't even understand what was going on in terms of the painting or what they were stealing.
What were they trying to go there for?
Oh, they're stealing something. I'm sure it's important, but this is the suits are nice, and the Freeport is beautiful production design by Nathan Crowley, and the specifics weren't important to me as it was happening, I guess I'll say. But everything in between the big fun set pieces in this movie is basically just exposition, right? I mean,
it's not even basically just exposition.
There's some interesting stuff, maybe you could say, with the to Debicki and Kenneth Branagh, whose name I can't even say without laughing.
Say Thor.
You know, say that, vengeful bitch. Like that whole thing is maybe there's a little bit of character stuff going on there, but a lot of it is like after that the opera scene, which I did enjoy, and he does pull-ups in a wind turbine. It's basically like what he meets with one person and they tell him to go meet with another person. I mean, it's almost like sort of like video game like.
It is. It's like, oh, this person sends you on a quest. The quest is to find this thing. In order to find this thing, you have to meet with this person, and they'll tell you what to do.
I mean, I'm not sure if I already said this to you, but I'll say it again for the benefit of the listener, that to me, one of the best examples of what is shakier about this movie compared to something like Inception is there's literally almost the exact same scene with Michael Caine in both movies, where Michael Caine has one scene where all he's doing in terms of plot is moving the main character to be introduced to another character. Like it's just the not filler, but he's connecting characters. Yeah. He doesn't turn out to be an important character in the movie. But in Inception, it's like a really great scene. It's an even shorter scene, I think, where he goes into the classroom and Michael Caine he's the father-in-law of DiCaprio. And while he's there to introduce Ellen Page's character, you get to know a lot about DiCaprio in that scene, and you get to learn about this sort of sense of like he's still living in the past, and he's still trying to hold on to this memory of his wife, and you get to understand of the state of his relationship with his children at this point in his life, and so that all on top of also delivering the necessary exposition of what is gonna be the introduction of an important character. But in Tenet, they just are in a restaurant and have some sort of quippy dialogue with each other, and it's all it is. There's no like subtext to the scene other than just kind of them joking around. I mean, I sort of enjoy it because it's just I enjoy the charm of the actors, and it's almost like self-conscious and knowing in the way that it's just sort of like a pointless scene. So it's not like horrible or anything, but it's like there's so much less in that scene than in the Inception one. I think it's very interesting to see Nolan working in this mode of having, as I said earlier, characters who are not miserable and depressed in his movie, where like they're like cracking jokes and things, and they have like one-liners and things, which actually Nolan, to his credit, or maybe not credit, but he does this in a lot of movies. Christopher Nolan has a very strange sense of humor that no one talks about, because if you don't like Nolan, you're not even gonna think about this stuff, and if you do like Nolan, you're almost too embarrassed to talk about it. But he always is like, there's always these like sort of like, do you know what I'm talking about? Like in maybe not the early movies, but like the Batman movies and Inception, and more than anything in Tenet, is the characters always have these kind of back and forth quips. Yeah, and they're usually not very funny.
Well, I don't know.
But you kind of just are like amused by the attempt at trying to be funny.
I think the best of them come from the Batman movies, and it probably is sort of the ridiculousness of the idea, like in the ridiculousness and the comic book ness of it, and he does it in those movies in a way that's way more heartfelt, I guess, than something like an Avengers movie or something. You know, like the Avengers movies are a little bit more like they know that they have to do this in a certain way, and a lot of times it works, and the humor is funny, you know. But in these Batman
some
movies,
of the movies, but it's deflating the seriousness a lot in Marvel movies. And in Nolan, he and that's almost what makes them not funny, and like the line is funny, but it just, the whole fact that he's trying to have little jokes in his movie just amuses me. is the fact that he's so self-serious in his movies, and these movies are so intense, and like, but it's like he's also trying to like insert some humor into it. Just the attempt of that is just sort of,
very,
it's like endearing
very
to
slightly
me.
though. I mean, it's very like,
yeah.
I don't know. I'm trying to think of what are the main jokes in something like The Dark Knight, which is a very dark movie just in general. But like the dialogue between Alfred and Bruce, I think, has all of those elements of being. Alfred is the sort of the not so serious one, and he's the one. Well, I guess. No pun intended, since that was the tagline of the movie. But yes. You know, Alfred is the one who's the sort of he's poking fun at Bruce's seriousness, but in a way,
like when he says when he says do you want the Batmobile? And he says in the middle of the day, Alfred, not very subtle. He's like, oh, the Lamborghini.
Yeah,
then.
exactly.
And Alfred like mutters to himself. He's like, yeah, much more subtle. You know? And it's not like a big laugh or anything, but it's just kind of like, you know, it says something about the character, and it's just somewhat amusing. And definitely, I think Alfred is the good. Him being the foil to Batman is fits very well in that movie. And I think also Ledger and Hathaway in the last two movies are characters that are more kind of like tailored to being a little more humorous, I guess. But I mean, this is not to say that in Tenet it was like terrible. It's just that it was just sort of funny because he was trying to be like a little more lighthearted, and the characters were a little bit less serious, and
it is weird.
It both made me like incredibly embarrassed for him, but also like I was like, oh, like, you know, he's making the effort, and that's nice, you know. Like the whole thing with Michael Caine where he like shits on his suit or whatever, and then he's what does he say about like the English don't have a monopoly on snobbery?
Yeah.
And then they bring his food, and he says, can you box it up for me or something like that? And it's like the most fancy restaurant, and I don't know. It kind of works for me in the way that, like, you know, I don't know, maybe even like John Woo or like some of the Mission Impossible movies have this kind of like humor running.
There's a certain charm to the humor, I would say, and it's totally not. I wouldn't say it's that embarrassing. I think there's you know, it's not going to make you crack up laughing or anything, but there's a lightness about it, and there's a sort of
you know, it's like dad jokes.
A little bit, yeah.
Like
yeah, definitely.
It makes me feel the same way like when my dad makes a joke where I'm like, oh my god. But it's also like it's not like a really bad comedy where you feel contempt for it. You just go like, all right, that's kind of funny, you know, whatever. But I just thought there's a lot of that, and there's a lot of this like kind of, I guess what makes it more kind of awkward in the movie is that Nolan he's sort of trying to make like a cool movie, you know, and the characters are speaking in code a lot, and there's a lot of like, do you know what I mean? Like there's this kind of like jargon going on, and like they're not exactly saying what they're saying, and they're trying to be mysterious. Yeah. And Nolan is just I don't know, just trying to be cool or like that sort of thing just is also funny. But again, it's like his movies are cool in many ways. Like it is cool when they, they're riding up on the truck and they're trying to steal the thing, or, they're wearing these awesome suits and the look of it. But also it's like Nolan, there's just something about him where he's not, like he's a big fan of like Michael Mann movies and that sort of thing, or James Bond. but like Nolan himself is like a very nerdy guy. He's not like a cool guy.
Sure, yeah.
He is like, I can't watch interviews with Nolan because he is so clearly like this very like uncomfortable person, and he's so like not. He hides so much of himself in this sort of introverted way that it just makes me like anxious watching him. And
I guess what I would say is my favorite sequence. Well, I don't know. I guess two sequences are really tied for me as being just, you know, peak Nolan action at his best. Is the Freeport sequence and the Freeport sequence when it's coming back, and I would put those into sort of one little conglomerate. Even though they take place in different times in the movie, but I think you know they go together really, really well and really strongly. And the heist sequence on the highway,
on the
which
freeway,
is just so good. It's
and actually both sequences I think are the parts of the movie that best utilize the concept, the inversion thing. Yeah, because I feel like both are very cool when you see them. You know, both ways around.
Exactly.
I mean, you could kind of figure. I'm not sure if I figured out or guessed that it was him in the Freeport, but you kind of get a sense it's going to be someone you know and that sort of thing. But yeah, that whole thing when it plays back around is very cool. The backwards and forwards, two people in two versions of time fighting each other. Yeah. I mean, it's like such a mind fuck, but it's really well done, I think. And
it's
just the whole heist in general.
It's a moment in the movie
crash.
where you actually do think, maybe the only moment in the movie when they're sort of grappling with each other, that I thought, okay, how did they actually do this? You know what I mean? That was probably the one time in the movie where I was like, wow, that is like nothing I've ever seen before. You know what I mean? Like it was in a way that you know he does so spectacularly in blending visual effects with practical effects and blah blah blah. Like that's why, I don't know, for me, like I love the heist sequence of the truck in terms of its like elegance and skill in sort of putting together a sequence like that, in a way that I don't really think the opening has. Although I think it's good. It's good in its, well, I don't know. It's in its own right, and it does certain things very well, the opening sequence. But the breaking into the truck, I think, is just like, it's on a different level. It's really I mean, it's up there with the action sequences in something like Mission Impossible, Fallout, or Mad Max. Like it's
or other Nolan movies.
Yeah.
I mean, it is kind of admittedly a little bit of a retread in some ways of the Dark Knight chase sequence. But look, I mean, I love that sequence. So
yeah.
I'm perfectly happy to see something that's a little bit similar by the same guy, except with Van Hoytema, because both are just terrific. I think a big part of this, I want to segue into maybe one of the highest attributes of the movie is Ludwig Göransson.
Right.
And I think he is the key to why I enjoyed a lot of even the more confusing scenes. And I think especially the opening scene, I realized, because I was watching some of it again, how even if I didn't know exactly what was going on, the rhythm he gets you into with those like synthesizers and this like echoing sound that's going on. And then there's this moment where it builds and builds as they're waiting outside. And then the trio breaks off to go to the opera box, and the beat drops right as they start running. It's just exhilarating, and even more so, when you have it on, movie theater speakers, hearing that.
Or in IMAX.
Just brilliantly done. Yeah. Oh yeah. Shit, man, I might have to go see this in IMAX again. I don't know. It is bothering me that it's such an interval. Like, this is a movie under normal circumstances I'm sure I would have seen like 5
Probably,
times.
yeah.
Not just because I enjoy seeing Nolan movies a lot, but like I would have gone and seen it with my aunt and uncle. I would have seen it with someone else, and like I would have found excuses to go back and see this. I mean, I think I saw Dunkirk 4 or 5 times in the theater. When
I think I saw it 3 as well. So
yeah, I mean I'd love to see it even bigger speakers, but even in that smaller theater, you get the effect of it. And the score in the truck heist sequence. I mean that's by far my favorite scene in the movie, because it's so quintessentially Nolan in that it's like it's so dumb, like it's so silly, and he's so amazing at like he almost is like childlike in the way he conceives these sequences. And also the airplane thing, like it's like in terms of what's happening, you could think of so many other ways they could have a diversion that are less difficult to pull off than stealing a massive airplane and flying the thing. But it's almost like Nolan like reverse engineered the whole sequence just from saying, I want to crash an airplane into a building. Why am I doing this?
Well, we got to figure out a way.
It'll be a heist. Because it's so like not even like part of the heist they're actually doing. It's literally just like
it's the setup like to the heist. Yeah,
it's a diversion, and the whole thing with the trucks too, of like, how are we gonna steal this thing? Oh, we're gonna put a truck on every side of it, and then we're gonna make them smash together. Like it's such a it's literally something you feel like you would conceive with like your toy cars as a little kid. But this is not a criticism of it. Like,
no,
this is what I love about it. And I mean, if you saw me as that beat is building, and as one truck goes next to it, and then another truck goes in front of it, if you could see my face, I was just laughing, because I was just like, oh my God, what is he about to do? And also just how funny it is that, I mean, like Mission Impossible, they're a little more clever about it, where like something crashes and they divert the convoy. But in this, it's not even clever. It's like literally they're just gonna roll up right next to this highly secure convoy, and they're gonna be like, "Oh, seems
well." Not even just Mission Impossible. That's what they do in The Dark Knight. So like that's
yeah, that's right. Yeah, the burning truck. Yeah, but not a problem for me. I thought it was just fabulous.
Well, yeah, that's why like when you strip things away, and when you take this sort of base level of being so thrilled by what you're actually seeing on screen, and then maybe you do have to fill it back in with the why, which is okay. Like in that sequence they do explain, okay, why would we have to why would we have to why couldn't we just pull them over or whatever? Why would we have to move alongside them and then continue them on the path? And it's because they're being trapped by GPS. And it's like,
right. Yeah. And no, there is an internal logic to it. There you go. Okay, that's fair enough. And I love where the car is braking and they're just pushing the car on its wheels forward. Like, it's just also very like Grand Theft Auto 2, which of course I maybe have a soft spot for. And then once Washington climbs up on a fire truck, I'm just like, I'm beside myself.
He blows it up, and then blah blah blah. And then after that, there's the sequence where he, where you figure out that they're going backwards in time. The Sator is going backwards in time, and he's already known, the things that he knows, and blah blah blah. And then that sequence that I think is works really well, and is probably the only good use, one of the only good uses of sort of the backwards and forwards thing, is the interrogation scene, which I think is like really, really well done.
Yeah. No, that whole part is great too. And yeah, it's very eerie the first time you see. I was surprised how long he goes through the movie without doing the inversion stuff, because it's all in the trailer and you expect it to happen, but it's like a good hour, maybe hour and a half into the movie before it really starts happening. So when it does happen, with the car in the freeway going backwards, it's actually kind of eerie.
Yeah,
too. Like it has a creepiness to it. And then that whole chase is brilliant, and the whole thing where he's speaking backwards, that's good. And it also works in terms of it's actually one of the moments in the movie where you feel like you're understanding something, and it's comprehensible. Where when you see Branagh go through and then go through again, you feel like you're actually having, you're gaining a further grasp rather than losing that grasp.
Yeah, exactly.
Which I think happens as it goes on a little bit. But yeah, there's like clever things, and also him like where then he inverts himself, and then doesn't he bug the case that flies back into Branagh's car?
Yeah, he does. Yeah, so that he can track.
Yeah,
Branagh.
like there's those are cool little things too. Anyway,
yeah, let's talk about Branagh because I was gonna say that just like everything else in this movie, I feel extremely conflicted about him as the villain, in that he is so dumb and terrible, but also he's so
terrible.
He's so good and hilarious to watch and amazing at the same time.
Right.
Like his character as sort of the literal he's like again bringing it back to Rocky. He's like the big bad guy in Rocky 3. he's like the big Russian dude. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, right.
He's just like the idiot Russian. And it's like it almost like curves that horseshoe of being so bad that it's good again, like it's.
Yeah, I didn't feel like as I was watching it that it was like terrible. Though this sounds like we're getting into like the thing that really bothers you the most about this movie.
No. This is not the thing that bothers me the most about it. Because I actually enjoyed watching him. You know what I mean? Like I really enjoy his seeing just how over the top he is, and almost like the thing that I think is weird is he's so he's absolutely not the person I would have picked for this role, but also he's pretty much the perfect person for this role.
Right.
So like I don't know, in that way he's quite enjoyable, and it's not even a negative. Like this is the thing, is like I enjoy a lot of it, and I enjoy some of it a lot, but then other parts I'm just like I'm like my eyes have gone into the back of my head. Like
I was trying to remember. You use the bathroom at one point in the movie, which is sometimes even a subconsciously telling thing, is like when you choose to use the bathroom in a movie.
Yeah.
You've already seen. What scene did you? Because I feel like it was a Branagh scene.
No, it wasn't. It was a scene where he goes back to Priya after the what's it called? After the heist in the Freeport.
Oh, okay,
I use the bathroom at that point. Yeah, which is totally expository. I picked that moment for that reason.
Yeah, actually, now that I think of it, the Priya scenes actually are kind of like the scene with Michael Caine, the most kind of like banal exposition.
Yeah. Like
they're the least interesting scenes. The scenes with Branagh, you can't accuse them of not being interesting. At least, I mean.
Yeah, exactly.
They're fun sequences, and especially when he's first introduced, threatening to castrate John David Washington and then force his testes into a slit in his throat. I mean, I never expected to see something like that in a Christopher Nolan movie, but I mean, enjoyable to me at least. I mean, you have got to give him credit. He makes the guy very hateable, which, I mean, I'm trying to think. Well, I guess the Joker is Nolan's greatest villain achievement.
But it's true in sort of a base level, in that he's just big, mean, bad man, basically, is like so like in that way it's like yeah, he is villain. I am villain. Yeah, and so like that's kind of it. But then what I find so frustrating about him and his character is like he I don't know why he's doing anything that he's doing, and they try to explain it. Like it's not even one of those moments where Nolan is like, "You're gonna figure it out because I believe in you." You know, like it's like he tries to explain several times why he's doing what he's doing, and I never understand it. I still don't.
Well, is it just a very? It seems like a very like juvenile thing of like he's denying other people something because he can't have something, which is both in terms of his lover, Elizabeth Debicki, and also the world itself. Like that's basically as much of a reason Nolan comes up with, right?
Which is so
if he
bad.
can't have this,
so
then
dumb.
no one can have it, which is very 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 silly.
It's so dumb.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe if the movie is a better, just everything else around it, you would accept it a little more, just as like, okay, whatever. It's not important, really, what he's doing. But I mean, yeah, it's a pretty ludicrous plot for sure.
Yeah, and this has always been sort of my critique of something like, like some of the. I guess even some of the Mission Impossible movies or the James Bond movies, like these sort of spy thrillers, they all kind of have a challenge of explaining why would someone go to the lengths that they're going to destroy everything, right? Like why would someone actively pursue nuclear holocaust, or in this case something worse, temporal whatever she says,
as Clemence Poesy tells us. Yes.
Like why would someone go to those lengths? And the great thing and the funny thing is he explains it perfectly in The Dark Knight. Like this is the Joker's character, and why it's so perfect and wonderful and succinct is some people just want to watch the world burn. You know what I mean? Like, and that there's no explanation other than that. And that's perfect. You don't have to explain anything else. And so like all of these movies go to long lengths to explain why someone would destroy the entire world or whatever, like, and he already did it. He already did it, what is it, 12 years ago? He already explained why someone would do that, and he's not he's not going back to that theme, and he's not going back to that idea. He's trying to say something that's more just dumb, like it's just more idiotic than what he was saying. And so like
yeah
I mean, just the frustrating thing about watching this like extremely bombastic ridiculous performance that is also pretty entertaining for the most part is that I'm confused as to why he's doing anything. And I guess that's what plagues me about the whole movie is like I don't know why anybody's doing anything.
Yeah, I mean, does Debicki's character make sense? I mean,
no, actually, her character is my biggest reason why I dislike this movie.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Well, expand on that then.
Yeah. My main frustration and the reason why I disliked it the second time coming out, and instead of just being confused, is I really, really, really felt that there was a missed opportunity with her character and her character motivation. In that he's trying to play on the sort of human emotions of I'm doing all of this for my son and blah blah blah. I'm doing all of this because of because of the love that I have for my son. And the way that he shows it is Kat explaining multiple times over and over again that she loves her son. And it's so deeply frustrating that I found myself like hitting my head was in my hands like once she said for the fourth time like, well, everyone in the world is gonna blow up, and that also includes my son. And it's just like it's so ridiculous and dumb, the fact that his conceptualization of, and it's kind of what we were talking about with The Exorcist almost, his conceptualization of this mother-son relationship is, when are we gonna go to blah blah blah, and then he gets rushed off into a van and you never see him again. You know what I mean? Like it's so missing from this 2.5 hour movie is a relationship at all. You don't see it. There's nothing.
Right.
And it's so deeply frustrating, and that's my biggest dislike of this movie is there's no reason that, other than sort of the plot contrivances that he comes up with, there's no reason that you couldn't have sort of these heartfelt moments, these more intimate moments between members of a family. Like there's none of that, and it would have given the whole movie and the whole motivation for all of these characters a place and a sense of purpose, a sense of being, like even if what's the protagonist even if the protagonist had a sequence of him interacting with Kat and her son, like that would be almost enough for me to be like, well, at least there's some effort. You know what I mean? Like at least there's a certain amount of heart in this this interaction. Instead, we get him being like, he's a cute kid, and she's like, he's everything. And it's like it's so frustrating. It's so weak. That bond is so weak that I can't.
Yeah, no, it is weirdly. It's the heart of the movie, and it's barely in the movie. That is, I mean, oddly, it's like like J.J. Abrams. I hate to say this. He moves the movie along so fast, you kind of just like, oh, I'm not even gonna think about it. But yeah, I mean, thinking back on it, not in the movie. It does feel like it is. You're right. I mean, I'm not sure why I didn't think of this that much, but it is a, and it's funny that in Inception, he gets away with the same thing where you never see the kids' faces, the whole movie. You see the same shot of them from behind in the memory.
Well, it's probably more powerful that way, honestly. Like in Inception, yes. The idea is that he is unable to, he's unable to sort of see their faces. He's unable to save his wife from jumping in that, there's this sense of lack of control in that way. In this,
and the nature of his relationship with his wife is also fleshed out
100%.
As the movie goes on. There's more and more. It goes deeper and deeper as it goes along.
But in this way, like in this movie, it feels so artificial because there are like very minor moments of her interacting. You know what I mean? Like there's these like little snippets that you get where she's like saying goodbye to him after school or whatever, or even in the end where she's just like holding his hand as they walk away, and it's like this is so weak compared to sort of the, I don't know, there's just something that I'm missing from this interaction. Like you're just supposed to assume that because she's his mom and because there's this barrier between them, that you're just supposed to make the cognitive leap in that way, and I don't. I'm sorry, I just don't. It's not. It maybe it's me being just a cold, dead person inside, but it's like I don't. Just because someone has a child doesn't make that the motivation for their life. You know what I mean? Like it's.
I think Nolan has. I think in some ways, I felt like watching this, he may have taken some of the wrong lessons from Dunkirk, in the sort of thing of minimalist characterizations. Where in Dunkirk this worked because there's a built-in drive and emotional center of that movie of history and of you're seeing the characters develop through the actions they take over the course of the film. But I feel like it's almost like he's done these wonderful movies, multiple movies about the parent-child relationships and the longing between parents and children.
Yeah, well, like Interstellar is like a fantastic example of this. Like, remember that sequence? Yeah. Interstellar is the one that I was really thinking of when it came to, like him building a connection between, father, in this case, father and daughter, and then that being completely broken, because he has this. There's these really great sequences early on, with Matthew McConaughey's character and his what's her name, Murph.
Murph.
Yeah. So he has these really interesting snippets early on in the movie, and then later on, that moment that gives weight to the moment where he sees her as an adult. You know what I mean? Like he hasn't seen her in whatever it is, 15 years or whatever, and there's this extremely powerful moment where McConaughey he breaks down and it's fantastic. It's so good. You connect the dots.
It's one of the best things he's ever done.
Exactly. Yeah. You connect the dots, and he does it so well in that case, which is why I'm so confused at why this movie has none of that. It literally has none of that. I cannot fathom what made him decide to completely strip away the interactions between different these different characters. Like it doesn't make any sense to me. It's so hard for me to imagine why he would think that was a good idea. You know what I mean?
Well, that's the funny thing is he got praised for Dunkirk and that movie's different qualities, and everyone, like a lot of people made fun of him for the sincerity of Interstellar, I think, and a lot of people really sort of shit on the fact that that movie wore its heart on its sleeve so much. So I wonder if he sort of.
But wasn't that one of the major criticisms of Dunkirk too? Was that they're unemotional characters and they're people that you don't know or understand?
Some people criticized it, but generally the movie was well regarded. I mean, look, I don't know if Nolan follows all this at all. I mean, I know the guy doesn't even own a computer, so who knows?
Is that true?
Or he doesn't. Does he not? He doesn't own a cell phone. He might not own a computer. He doesn't have an email address. I know that. But so I don't know what maybe he reads the newspaper. I don't know, but I just feel like he since Interstellar, it's like he reached this peak of like this really, really going about as far into the bounds of kind of emotional excess as you could go. And then sort of holding that back with Dunkirk. And then I feel like, again, he's sort of holding it back, but in a way that doesn't work the way Dunkirk did. And I feel like... Do you feel like Elizabeth Debicki should have been the main character?
Well, I kind of go back and forth because in sort of maybe the platonic form that I have in my mind of what this movie could be, yes, maybe. But also, I thought she was really not very good in this movie. So
I think I'll have to disagree about. I mean, again, I think she's good for what she's asked to do, but I mean, again, it's like there's not as much character there, and she actually could have a lot more character. Again, given that the backstory that we know about her is much more compelling than that of the two guys. I mean, you'd have to change the movie a lot because I mean, she'd have to be an action hero and all that sort of whatever. So that maybe. But then you'd be kind of too close to Inception in some ways because then the main character trying to get back to the kids. He's done it already 3 times, but so that's fair enough. But I mean, I think I didn't really think about the missed opportunities there, but you are not wrong in saying that there's a lot to be desired in terms of her. But I do think her performance is good as a person in an abusive relationship and. I mean, that's about all she is. I mean, all these people are very, not much deeper than just the things that
I don't know.
I
don't know because I just thought she was, for me, she was a kind of a boring person to watch on screen. And it could just be down to the writing of it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
Well, I mean that we can say is definitely Nolan.
Yeah.
Because I mean we know she's a great actress.
Yeah,
I mean, she's amazing in Widows.
Yeah. No, and yeah, it is frustrating though because it's like she doesn't have yeah. I guess it probably is the writing that made me not connect with her, but I just every time she was on screen, I was like so uninterested. I guess unless she was being the foil for Kenneth Branagh, which I was immediately drawn back in. But
yeah, I don't think I mean, it'd be very strange to cast Emma Stone in a movie like this. But I mean, I don't think any of my favorite actresses really could have done that much more because I mean, it is a character that's just she's the connection to the villain and she's the quote unquote emotional center of the movie. And there's not really anything going. Yeah, I mean, that would be more interesting if somehow the protagonist was more involved or if there was a relationship that built with the kid or something like that. I mean, speaking of Clint Eastwood, honestly, that's probably what he would do in this type of movie. The more typical version of that would be that the kid would be more involved, and I don't know. I'm guessing Nolan probably doesn't like working with kids very much, because I can't imagine he's much of a director in terms of getting performances out of people.
Yeah, no, sure, that's true, but I don't know. Maybe make him a little bit older.
Yeah.
It's
no, I mean, sure.
It doesn't. The thing is, it doesn't matter in the way, I don't know. It's supposed to be the driving force of the movie. You know what I mean? The relationship between her character and the son is supposed to be basically what drives the entire movie. And it's really disappointing that he didn't lean into that and make that an actual important part of the movie. It's no, I mean it's deeply actually it's kind of disturbing that it wasn't what he decided
would
to
come
do.
Across to him that he should. Do you think also he has Nolan is I don't want to say this the way I was gonna phrase it. He has a problem. That sounds really too liberal or something. But he has definitely. He's a very sex averse director, and I say this only because there are a couple just moments in the movie where I feel he leans into he hints at like romance or something, like where she kisses John David Washington, you know? Which reminded me a lot of like the new Star Wars movies, where I'm not sure if it's just people are worried about doing romantic subplots, or if like that comes off as like either naive and or sexist. But I always just find it so lame in movies where it's like either make them just friends or have them actually develop a relationship between, having this weird thing where they kiss each other. One of my least favorite moments in any recent movie is the end of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, where they set up like they're like hinting at like, oh, is there a romance between him and the girl? And then they shake hands at the end and they say, let's be friends. And I think that's maybe the lamest moment in all of cinema. And I didn't feel quite as negatively about that in Tenet, but
I think that's pretty true, actually. It's very funny now that you mention it, because it's not necessarily something that I had considered about as a theme in all of his movies. Is that he has no he doesn't have interested parties, I guess, at all.
Never. I mean,
I can't.
And in Memento, it's kind of like a more sinister thing. And
in the Batman movies, it obviously ends terribly.
Batman also works because it's never like a sexual romance. It's like a childhood longing. That works. The Rachel thing works well. Actually, I realized the only exception to the thing where he does a character who's like has any kind of like sexuality to them at all is
The Prestige.
Anne Hathaway.
The Prestige.
Oh. What is that?
The Prestige. He's like his
well,
whole
I guess
motivation.
He has a wife or something.
No. His whole motivation is or Christian. One of, but the compelling moments of that movie is the realization that he hasn't been playing these two women. It's two people playing these two women. You know what I mean? Like The Prestige is kind of his most interesting movie in terms of like relationships, male and female relationships.
I've seen that movie twice. I frankly don't even know what you're talking about.
Well, remember,
I'll take your word for it.
So Christian Bale's character, or two characters.
Yeah, his wife drowns.
So no. That's Hugh Jackman. Hugh Jackman's character's wife drowns at the beginning, and that's why he wants the revenge. But Christian Bale, he goes and he marries that girl who has a son, but then he's also the other Christian Bale is fucking Scarlett Johansson at the same time, and then the girl.
I literally forgot there were two Christian Bales, but of course, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
That's like the plot of the movie.
That's the main. Yeah, that's the main conceit. Yeah, but again, it's not like, I don't know. I mean, that's such a small part of. I don't know. There's never any real sense of like actual sexual desire in that movie. It's more just exists as like part of the story, which is basically just of the two guys. I don't know. I just felt like, I mean, in Tenet, it doesn't really matter. It was just like a small thing, and you could kind of pass it off like, well, it's not as incestuous, but like the moment where Leia kisses Luke when they swing over the thing, you're kind of just like, oh, it's a little moment, whatever. But I think it's also lame, and filmmakers should,
I totally agree, and I think
there's an American. I know he's not American, but like Hollywood filmmaking is like weirdly sex averse now. I can't think of the last movie where I felt like there's any sexual chemistry. Every movie I can think of is by a European. It's like Call Me by Your Name, Disobedience, Blue is the Warmest Color. Like, it's all these European filmmakers, any like Guadagnino movies. All these guys are not Americans, except for Clint Eastwood having multiple three-ways in The Mule. But I'm not making this up. But
I mean, what I will say is like it's very like I love that you bring up Star Wars in that way, because I think like Star Wars is almost the quintessential opposite of what Nolan does, because even though there's that sort of, maybe friend kiss for good luck, as they're swinging across the bridge, there's also the total interesting sexual chemistry between Leia and Han Solo. It's like totally
which
the
not
driving.
only the movie leans into, but it's like the central force of that, at least that half of the second movie.
Yeah, exactly. And it's
and that sort of thing is like completely gone from most mainstream movies.
Yeah, and it's pretty dumb. Like it's actually really dumb that this is where the way that we've gone. I don't know. It's I guess probably the reason why is because people are afraid of being caught in sort of these like dumb tropes, I guess.
Well, they don't want to seem like they're objectifying the actress.
Is that true? Is that why though?
Yeah, because you don't want it to be like the actress is just in the movie as like they have a sex scene and they're just all their serve is as a romantic character. Which honestly, it's in something like Tenet, it doesn't make any difference because that's who she is anyway in the movie, just without anything sexual going on.
But
I mean, I think the solution to that is very easy, which is just to have the actors show their cocks on screen. Like, it's very simple.
No, wait.
It's just have egalitarian nudity. Everyone wins.
It doesn't even need that necessarily. Like if you even wanted to say, like, think about this. What drives me crazy is like we've gone so far in the other direction. Like I can almost point to like probably 20 movies that took place during the Hays Code that depicted sexual relationships as more interesting and like vibrant and like deep than anything that's come out in the past like 5 years.
True.
No, I mean, it's like it's completely true. It's like why are we like it doesn't necessarily have to be the fact that we have to have grotesque nudity to show to show interesting sexual dynamics between male and female. Like why would that even have to be the case? Like people have these different relationships and different experiences with each other on a literal everyday bit. Maybe not anymore. That's actually what we're getting at, is that people don't have interesting relationships anymore. So we're all fucked.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, in many cases, it's terrible. Like I sometimes watch movies from like the early 2000s that have like the inserted romance, and it just stinks. And honestly, I think if Nolan did it, it would be terrible because he's just such an awkward. He's just so. It's like him trying to be funny. Like it's just so unnatural for his MO.
Yeah.
But I just think I just thought it was funny, like watching the movie, and also there's sort of a scene at the end where I couldn't even it took me like 10 minutes watching Elizabeth Debicki with him on the deck of the ship before I realized, like, oh, this is supposed to be like a seduction or a semi-seduction scene, or at least a romantic. It's not a seduction like Mission Impossible, like, with the femme fatale sort of thing, but it is her pretending that she loves him. But the sort of, I don't know, it felt so awkward. It just felt so like he was like uncomfortable sort of making it sexual and sort of having them in states of undress, and she's applying sunscreen to him, and I was like, what it felt like either like don't do it differently and have it just be dialogue, or like, I don't know.
I kind of enjoy
if he committed fully, it would be bad, and it wouldn't. He's not Adrian Lin or anything.
No, to be fair, like I kind of liked the sort of, I guess the awkwardness in sort of, you understand that she's coming back to a scenario where she's incredibly uncomfortable and not doing entirely what she would be doing. You know what I mean? Like she's trying to pretend in that way, and so like. I kind of appreciated the awkwardness of that scene. You know what? I liked it way more than watching dumb shit happen in in the Russian village that is unnamed or whatever.
Village.
I thought that was more interesting. Seeing her try to pretend that she was interested in him and kind of have this other motivation, but still, it wasn't very good. It was.
And you're right. Actually, in some ways, it's probably more interesting than the typical Mission Impossible scene because her actual feelings are like in so much more contrast to what she's pretending to feel for him. I mean, it's actually in some ways it's a more interesting character scene than a lot of other parts of the movie. I do feel like as Crosscut, I mean, I was more interested in watching them blow up buildings with bazookas and nonsensical action scenes. But this is the simple kind of person I am, I guess. But I think maybe what was more awkward about that whole Crosscut sequence is just it's like the incongruity of the two of them. Yeah, even though it is both are tense and both are building to the same thing, it's just not. Like the tenor of them is just so, one is so frantic and just so like, oh my god, we gotta get to this thing and do this, and then the other is just like this weird like slow motion, domestic scene. I mean, I was watching again. I think it is fair to compare it to Inception because in some ways they're quite similar. The finale of that is there's like him and Marion Cotillard in the limbo world where he's talking to her, and there's the final revelation about him and her, right? And then as you're seeing this, you're also seeing Joseph Gordon-Levitt fighting people in zero gravity and Tom Hardy killing 1,000 people on the snow base. But it flows together because the dramatic tenor of what's going on between him and Cotillard is so elevated and is so emotional that it actually is as dramatically intense as watching a guy run around with a machine gun in a fortress.
Yeah,
and they totally flow together. I mean, maybe some people would disagree with me, but I think they do. But this, it felt every time it cut away, I was like, oh, what, we're going here, and already I'm kind of confused, and it just made the whole. It was sort of a shame because normally Nolan has a really good like finale for all of his movies, and ending too. We didn't even talk about just the kind of flaccidness of this movie's ending, which I think is
terrible.
The guy, I mean, it's not terrible, but it's just like when you compare it to like the amazing endings he's done, especially for his last 5 movies. I mean, you think even like Dark Knight Rises, undeniably the weakest of those movies. That movie has a phenomenal ending. Yeah. And that whole sequence is brilliant. But having it just end in this way where he like fades in Neil's voiceover, I guess, and it kind of just repeats another line. And
I think that
it's so weirdly kind of anticlimactic.
Yeah,
and then the Travis Scott song comes in, and I was like, oh wait, that's the end of the movie. I've never felt that in any Nolan. Every other Nolan movie, I feel like, oh yeah, that's the end.
Yeah, no, it does weird. It does feel like strangely anticlimactic, as well as being like almost inconclusive in a way. Like it's very like it has the weird feeling of what some movies. I guess actually the worst offender of this and why I was so like was so. I really did not like this movie. One of the worst offenders of this was Captain America: Civil War, where the ending of that movie was just product placement for the next movie. You know what I mean? Where it was like I'm like tune in next time, guys. It was like the most serial of endings to any movie. And it almost felt like that was the case with this movie, even though it's not trying to set it up for a sequel, but the whole climax is pointing towards what happens in the future. You know what I mean? Like the the crux of this movie is supposed to be like oh, this is the conclusion to, you know, both this forward and backwards pincer move, blah blah blah, but also your entire character is going forward to do like more cool shit, you know, like and we're gonna miss out on that, or it's gonna get a sequel, and it was so like it was so weird in that way, and it was unlike pretty much any other Nolan movie, and even the ones that do set itself up for like a sequel, like I'm thinking of Batman Begins, which does it like really hard. It's like so.
Oh yeah, but it still feels like conclusive. It feels like the button on that movie.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that's probably like one of the weaker, like less memorable endings he's done. But even that, you know, it works. And this just felt like, I mean, on one hand though, I think I was so like, my brain was so blitzed at that point, I didn't realize that when he says he's a protagonist of the story, that he is the person who founded Tenet. In fact, I'm actually so stupid, I didn't even realize that Tenet was an organization. I didn't even understand that was what the organization literally was called. Maybe because it's so stupid that I couldn't actually believe that's what it was.
Yeah.
But there's definitely like a feeling when it ended of just kind of, oh, okay, that's.
But then when he gets in the car with Priya and he was like, "Don't you realize you and I have both been working for me this whole time?" And you're like, okay. That's the
thing. That's the thing where you know it's not working so well when you have these moments that are big revelations, and that leave you, even when you understand them and you're not, you know, 2 double-digit IQ like me, where you go, oh, he founded Tenet. What does that mean? That doesn't really mean anything. And same with when he finds out that he knows Neil his whole life.
Yeah,
like you go, oh, that's interesting. But it's not like oh, Cobb incepted Mao, which like recontextualizes the entire meaning of the film, or like the entire character you've been watching.
Or like the ending of Prestige, where you know you have to you basically have to rewatch the movie in order to kind of like
clearly in my case, yes,
get the concepts of what he's trying to lay down. You know, so it's like he is so capable of making an ending that is. That is revelatory, I guess you could say. You know.
Yeah, but and in this case, it was just like the big twists at the end are just, it's just information. It's not. It doesn't. They try to make it like an emotional thing between him and Neil, but I don't know. I mean, it's sort of like, I think it's probably just because you haven't really gotten a sense of them being really that close or anything in the movie, other than just, you know, they're charming actors and they seem to like each other, but it's nothing. I don't know. It didn't feel like it meant anything. I mean, maybe also the other thing I didn't understand is that Neil is going back inside to then take the bullet in reverse. Like I didn't. Get that again,
I got that. Yeah.
I'm an idiot, but I don't know, even that, I guess you feel a little bit because you like Neil. He's a nice fella, but...
It's the end of a beautiful friendship.
Yeah, that's what they actually say that. That was actually where I thought that would, like, make my friends from Stanford, leave
You were, like, actually embarrassed.
Because especially my friend Mike, when we watched Five Bloods in our film club, when they did like Treasure of the Sierra Madre quotes of the movie, they were just like so done with the movie at that point. They're just like, oh god. But shockingly they liked it, I guess. Is there anything else about this movie that should be discussed?
No, I'm done.
I don't know. Christopher Nolan, he'll come back. I don't. I'm not worried about him. I really like this trajectory of John David Washington becoming an action star, because I liked him a lot in BlacKkKlansman, but seeing him in a more lighthearted setting, even as we said, with as minimal as these characters are, he is just so much fun to watch, and he has a great physical presence too.
Yeah.
You know, as a former athlete, and and Pattinson too. We feel like we haven't talked about him much, though I'm not really sure what there is to say about him other than just he's also in the movie,
and he's good at what he does.
But,
yeah, I mean,
but he's terrific. I mean, he's terrifically just as much as Washington. He's wonderful and charming, and you like him, and he has a great presence on screen too. And seeing them walk around in their beautifully tailored suits is just like so cool. I just love watching them move around. But I don't know. This is not a performance movie. This is not a movie that's going to win anyone Oscars.
No.
Except for Kenneth Branagh,
Oh
who
my gosh.
should win all the Oscars for his wonderful performance as, what's he called?
Sator.
Yeah. He's having so much fun. I think I've told you Elena hates when he goes over the top in like Dunkirk or something like that. And yeah, I don't care how over the top he goes. He's always fun for me to watch. I just love him.
Yeah. Well.
Well, I guess that concludes this episode. Any other thoughts, Cameron, about anything in your life?
No.